Jewish nationhood as source of anti-Semitism. The third component of Judaism is Israel, the biblical and historical name of the Jewish nation and the name of the modern Jewish state. Between 70 and 1948, Israel the nation, or people or ethnicity, regarding Jews we are using the term interchangeably, existed, while Israel the state did not. To non-Jews, and even to many Jews, the peoplehood of the Jews is usually the most perplexing aspect of Judaism. This confusion is understandable. For one thing, one normally associates a national group with a land and a state. Yet for nearly 2,000 years, the Jews lived without their state, and most Jews lived outside their land. A second source of confusion is that the Jews constitute the only group in the modern Western world that is both an ethnic group and a religion. For both these reasons, Jews are unique, a uniqueness that often renders the Jews suspect in the eyes of others. But as perplexing, unique, and even discomforting as it may be, the Jew is a member of both the Jewish people and the Jewish religion, and this has been so since the beginning of Jewish history. To deny that nationhood is a component of Judaism is as untenable as to deny that God or Torah are components of Judaism. This is particularly evident today, since Jewish nationhood is the one component of Judaism with which both religious and committed secular Jews identify. One group of Jews did attempt to eliminate the national component of Judaism. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, Reform Jews in Germany and the United States, fearing that mention of Jewish peoplehood would arouse anti-Semitism, called for the elimination of Judaism's national component. But even these radical reformers never denied that nationhood had always been a part of Judaism. They simply wanted it removed. The attempt failed because neither Jews nor Judaism can survive the denial of Jewish peoplehood. Likewise, the Jewish people cannot survive the elimination of the religious components of Judaism. For the Jewish nation is defined by the Jewish religion. The only way a non-Jew can become a member of the Jewish nation is by converting to the Jewish religion. The Jews are, therefore, the only nation that an outsider can join irrespective of geographical considerations. For example, to become a Canadian, one must first live in Canada. As a consequence, the Jews are a transnational nation, and this too has been a significant source of anti-Semitism. The Jews' commitment to monotheism, Jewish law, and their doctrine of chosenness, discussed in Chapter 3, that is, commitment to the religious aspects of Jewish life, has been the primary cause of anti-Semitism in religious societies. In the modern age, however, when nationhood displaced religion as a supreme value, the Jews' nationhood, and since 1948 the Jews' state, have become added causes and the primary targets of anti-Semitism. Jewish nationhood became an additional target of non-Jews' animosity the moment the modern age of nationalism began. Immediately following the French Revolution in December 1789, during a discussion in the French National Assembly on granting French Jews equal rights, Count Stanislas de Clermont-Tonnerre declared, "The Jews should be denied everything as a nation, but granted everything as individuals. There cannot be one nation within another nation." These fateful and prophetic words foretold much of the modern world's attitude toward the Jews. To be equal to non-Jews, the Jews would have to abandon their Jewish national identity. That was the price of emancipation. In 1789, French Jews were told what virtually all European Jews would eventually hear: the price of individual emancipation is national extinction. In 1807, Napoleon convened a Sanhedrin, the name of the Jewish high court in ancient Jerusalem, of 71 leading rabbis and lay leaders. They were to disavow any commitment to Jewish nationhood and to declare that the only national identity of French Jews was French. Having little choice, they acceded to all of Napoleon's demands, except the sanctioning of intermarriage. This, too, was prophetic. To this day, many Jews adopt virtually every characteristic of the non-Jews among whom they live, but oppose their children marrying a non-Jew. In the age of religion, the Jews were offered equality on the condition that they abandon their religion and convert to the majority religion. In the new age of nationalism, the Jews were offered equality on the condition that they abandon their national identity and adopt the majority's national identity only. In both ages, opponents of the Jews delivered the same message: cease being Jews. Today, as in 1789, the refrain of the Jews' opponents is, "The Jews should be denied everything as a nation, but granted everything as individuals." The Soviets said this. Many of the Muslim and Arab opponents of Israel say this. The United Nations, when it delegitimized Zionism, said this. They all deny opposing Jews as individuals. They claim they want only to destroy Jewish nationhood. This is why they do not call themselves anti-Semites, but rather anti-Zionists. The major difference between anti-Semites throughout Jewish history and today's anti-Zionists is only which component of Judaism, which aspect of Jewish distinctiveness, each found the most intolerable. For example, medieval Christian anti-Semites found the Jews' religious beliefs intolerable, and today's anti-Zionists loathe the Jews' national commitment. Among the most ardent enemies of Judaism today is the left. Marxists, for example, are theoretically opposed to all religions. But from Marxism's earliest days, its adherents tended to be particularly anti-Jewish. Among other reasons, Judaism, unlike other religions, incorporates nationhood, while Marxist theory advocates the tearing down of national as well as religious allegiances. In practice, however, Marxist parties have been intensely nationalistic wherever they attained power, and the combination of chauvinistic nationalism with Marxist theory produced a particularly virulent strain of anti-Semitism. Neither could tolerate the Jews. Thus, for example, Soviet Jews who were committed to the God and Torah components of Judaism provoked anti-Semitism for Marxist reasons, quite aside from traditional Russian Orthodox anti-Semitism, while those who affirmed the national component of Judaism provoked Jew hatred for Soviet nationalist, Russian, Ukrainian, Moldavian, etc., as well as Marxist reasons. Thus, Soviet anti-Semitism was a reaction to every component of Judaism. It is no wonder, then, that religious, national, and political extremism are each anti-Semitic, and when combined, intensely anti-Semitic. For these reasons, developed further in chapters 9 and 11, the most potent expressions of Jew hatred today are found in fundamentalist Islam and on the radical left. With few exceptions, they have supplanted the right and Christendom, except for Christianity's extreme rightist and leftist elements, one hopes, permanently. And for both Islam and the left, Judaism's third component, nationhood, as embodied in the State of Israel and Zionism, elicits the greatest hostility. What about the issue of Jewish dual loyalty? Does the fact of Jewish nationhood mean that Jews outside of Israel have more than one loyalty? An answer is possible once we define the question. If we are asking whether Jews outside Israel are loyal to two governments, that of the country in which they reside and the government of Israel, the answer is no. Jews who affirm the national component of Judaism, both in fact and according to Jewish law, dinah di malkuta dinah, the law of the land is the law, according to the Talmud, live as every other good citizen, in accordance with the laws of and fully loyal to the country in which they reside, presuming, of course, that the government is not a dictatorship and does not pass immoral laws, exceptions that would apply to all decent citizens. But it is often asked, how would American Jews react if war broke out between the United States and Israel? In view of the fact that democracies do not go to war with one another, the only imaginable way in which the United States and Israel would find themselves at war would be if either country abandoned its democratic and other moral principles. In such an event, the individual whether Jew, Christian, or atheist, would be obligated to follow the dictates of his moral values, which are, or should be, higher than all governments. Loyalty to any country should never mean supporting the country's policies when they are morally wrong. But still, doesn't the fact of Jewish nationhood mean that committed Jews are theoretically members of two peoples, the Jewish people and the people among whom they reside? Yes, and in this respect Jews are unique. But as long as moral rather than nationalist values are held supreme, this should trouble no one. An American Jew, for example, is no less loyal an American because he has a special attachment to Ethiopian Jews.